From our studios at historic Arnold's Park Amusement Park, it's Okoboji Broadcast with Jeff Thee. Welcome to Okoboji Broadcast, everybody. It is the weekend. It is warming up despite some wind. I'm Jeff Thee here at our studios at Arnold's Park Amusement Park. State Representative John Wills is here with me today, and of course, District Number 1 here, and from Spirit Lake. John, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's very nice to be above zero today.
I was going to say, 30 degrees, even 15 degrees never felt so good when that happened,
Exactly.
So. And you've had to travel these roads down to Des Moines and back, and I know it's always during the legislature you expect the weather, but that cold was terrible.
This winter overall so far has been really great. It's been an awesome winter, but they've had way more snow in Des Moines than what we have, 54 inches already.
I know.
So it's nice going down there and bragging that, hey, we don't have as much snow as what you do.
We don't get to do that very often.
No.
I have a daughter down there. I've had these conversations. Well, let's talk about, I know Spencer Chambers been able, in a way, do the eggs and issues and so forth, and you've done some stuff online, but, there's always things that go on during the legislative session that I like to talk about, and something, and I think that school funding is the biggest part of the budget, is it not?
It is about 48% of the budget.
Yeah, and you guys had a busy session on that, and have what you're going to do with funding for this year.
Yeah.
Well, actually, combining our current year and the upcoming fiscal.
Sure. I should step it back because just K through 12 is 48% of our budget.
Yeah.
If you add the regents and the higher education, it's more like 54% of our budget. So it's a significant part of our budget. Out of an $8 billion budget, over $4 billion of that is for education. So we did pass a 2.5% supplemental state aid is what it's called, which is an additional dollar amount towards what we spend per pupil. And right now it's about $7,000 per student. So we're going to add 2.5% onto that. One of the problems that happened this year is that about 6,000 kids didn't show up.
Yeah.
They didn't register. And so when we talk about 2.5%, that only is about 25 million this year. If all 6,000 of them had showed up, it'd be like 120 million.
Yeah.
So it was only $25 million this year because of that. But next year that number probably is likely to go up again, and we'll address that. We've actually budgeted and planned for 6,000 more new students next year.
Yeah.
And so that's the right way to do it. So we've really been looking at that and wondering what that's going to entail and how that will look. So we also wanted to reward schools that were actually in-person training and in-person education.
Yeah.
And so we had a supplemental because those schools went through extra expense. They had extra PPE expenditures and computer expenditure, all kinds of extra expenses. And so we did about $27 million of supplemental for this year.
Yeah.
And so that money, so our schools up here are going to get a benefit because they're all in school all year. And every school is going to get some, but it specifically is geared towards the schools that were in person and that sort of thing. But even Des Moines Public School, who wasn't in person, we had to make a special law to say you will be in person. And so even they will get some, but it is specifically going to go towards our schools up here and basically all of the rest of Iowa where they were doing the right thing. It was already a state law that they should be back to school, but some schools just chose to ignore that.
Well, and our schools, our local schools, have done such a great job.
They've been so awesome. Our teachers have worked hard. They have, in fact, I've gotten calls from teachers saying, is there any way that we can make it so that our kids, even though if they've been exposed but they've already had the coronavirus or the coronavirus, that they can still stay? Because the CDC guidelines say if you've been exposed, you must quarantine. And so our teachers really wanted our kids to be in school, and so I got to commend them because they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, and I've got a friend who's a teacher in Kentucky and has been doing the online, and she's got kids who regularly snooze. They got their Zoom on and so forth, but that contact with the student can enable them to. They're supposed to learn. You know,
it's really important. There are some kids that excel for online or for a homeschooling kind of atmosphere, but there are some kids that just can't do that at all. And then there's some kids in the middle that can do a little bit of both. And so what we're finding is that across the state, we've got about 78% of our kids are failing in math and that sort of thing. And so we really need to do something different. And not only are we affecting them this year, but I think, in my personal opinion, we're affecting them for generations. If we can't get them educated and brought back up to speed, that's going to take generations for them, and that's going to hurt the lower income folks the most. And so let's not do that. Let's get everybody back to school and in some way or another, and we'll leave it up to the parents to decide what that looks like. But we really need to involve the key aspect of education, and that's the kids.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the key and the most important factor of all. Other things on education, tenure for profs at our state universities.
Yeah, tenure was originally developed so that professors would have freedom of diversity of thought. And recently we're finding that the diversity of thought is no more. It's actually a singularity of thought. And we're having professors put in their syllabuses that if you don't agree with the way I think, and specifically in a liberal fashion, then you're going to fail. Now, we as a legislature have dealt with those issues and told them, no, you're not going to do that. But those folks are still teaching. Even though they have tried to make a singular focus on the way that people think and basically take away a person's freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And just be very direct. So we really need to look at tenure and say, listen, if you can be fired, you can be removed for certain things. Those professors have just as much right at their freedom of thought as what the students that they're trying to prohibit. The problem is they can't tell the students how to think. They can't tell the student how to talk or express their
or be punished for thinking that way or talking that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we really need to look at that. And man, the Regents universities right now, they're under the gun. Now, to their credit, they have come out with a freedom of speech a bunch of guidelines, and so we're reviewing those right now. And if this will be a huge step forward if they actually implement them and they actually work. So I'm looking forward to that. I think actually this is the first time in about 4 or 5 years now that they're actually listening and implementing some things that we're saying, you need to do this or else we're going to step in and do it for you. All
right. Well, and the topic of election integrity, this has been a big one for you.
Yeah, we passed this last week, and it's going to go to the governor. Hopefully she signs it. But we really looked at a bunch of different things. Across the nation we saw things that, some people thought, in fact, 70% Republicans and 30% Democrats thought that there was some shenanigans that happened last November. That's a huge number when you average it together. 47% of Americans thought there were shenanigans in the last election. Now, Iowa's election was very fair and very safe, but we also identified some of the things that happened in some of these other states where it was thought, and I'm not by any means saying that the election was stolen or anything like that.
Right.
There was shenanigans or red flags were displayed that say maybe we need to look at that. And so we're going to look at some of those things in the bill that we sent to the governor. We are going to purge the rolls of voters that haven't voted. So last year we had a record turnout. 1.7 million Iowans voted. We had 3.1 million Iowans in the state. So over half of our state. Now you got to remember, at least a third of those are not eligible to vote because they're under 18.
All right.
So, but 600,000 people didn't vote, even though we had a record turnout. Well, that means a good number of that 600,000 are either passed away, don't live in Iowa, or some other reason why that 600,000 people didn't vote, because there's no way we have 2.3 million voters in the state of Iowa. So we're going to purge some, those 600,000 people and make sure that they are not eligible to vote, because that's where some shenanigans can happen.
Right.
We're also going to look at. Did you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to say, and what people are critics of this, it protects everybody, because things can swing another way.
Yeah, just think, if one case of fraud happens, that means my vote is canceled.
Yeah.
If it's in opposition to what I think.
Right.
So, above all, when you start talking about 47% of Americans feel like there was shenanigans, that is reducing the confidence people have in our voting system, and we can't have that. In order to have an effective republic, we have to have a good, effective election system.
If you don't feel, if you look at this and you say there was some shenanigans, and the next time around, 4 years, 2 years, whatever it is, and you throw your arms up and go, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, my vote doesn't matter. Why would I go to the polls?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we also are looking at making actual criminal penalties against county auditors or basically any election official who knowingly goes outside the state law. And we had 3 state auditors last year who knowingly violated state law and went ahead and did their own thing, knowing that they weren't going to have any repercussions. And so now they cost their counties a lot of money. One of the counties, it was $67,000 that they cost their county.
Yeah. They're
a local taxpayer. Well, we shouldn't have that. We should have penalties if they're knowingly going out and flaunting the law. There's 56 different sections to this election integrity law, and those are some of the big points. But we shortened the balloting time for absentee ballots. That was one of the sticking points. That was one of the things that people are saying, well, you're suppressing the vote. Well, we're still allowing 490 hours of time for a person to do an absentee ballot. Now, when I go and vote, usually it takes 10 minutes. So out of that 490 hours, I think we can find 10 minutes to vote and get that ballot back. And so we're still being very reasonable. We've dropped down the absentee balloting to 20 days instead of 29 days. So we've taken about a week and a half. But the average in the nation is 19 days. And so we're still above average.
Right.
And there's 2 states that don't even offer absentee balloting. So we're still offering absentee balloting. And so we really need to put things in perspective. We were told in our 2 previous election bills that we were suppressing the vote, and yet last year we had a record turnout. And so, everybody that is against this bill, of course, is saying the sky is going to fall, and I think it's going to be quite the opposite.
Yeah.
We're going to be very protected and have a great election system.
And a couple other changes as I was looking at it. Polls would close at 8 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. And all those absentee have to be in.
Yes.
On election day as well. There's no 2 weeks later, and
except for out of country ballots.
Okay.
They've got 7 days still. So
okay.
If you're out of the country, you still have 7 days. Yeah, what we're finding is that in some of the states where there were red flags, they're still counting ballots coming in a week later. And all we're saying right now is, hey, the election ends on election day. Let's just get them in and do that. As far as balloting ending at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, we were one of the longest balloting days in the nation, and 8 o'clock is a reasonable compromise. There were some that wanted to drop it to 7 o'clock. The problem is that our elderly poll watchers and workers are really having a tough time staying till 9 o'clock anymore.
Well, they've been there since like 7 in the morning and got up before then to get ready and get in there, so that's a long day.
Exactly. So what you've got is people that have to be there. There has to be the same person or same people have to be there for the entire day to make sure that a consistency of that polling station is good. And so what you're finding is that they're just saying, we can't do it.
Yeah. Well, and election day is very important, let's face it. And if you can make it as transparent as possible, then you have less people saying, well, there must have been, if you got rules, you got fine lines, you don't cross those lines, you have a better chance of having whatever the outcome, an honest outcome.
Yeah, we had an election in November, and we've got the results, and we have to live with those and move on, and we just want to make sure that we don't have some of the suggestion that there was some improper things happening.
Yeah.
Let's just tighten it up and make it straight so that we don't have to deal with that in the future.
Indeed. Anything else going on that you're busy working on as we get to the funnels? And
well, we just, in fact, on Wednesday night, a gun bill, a Second Amendment bill, was released, and so we're really excited about that. What it does, and many people have been asking, this is my 7th year in the legislature, and every year people have asked for a what they call constitutional carry. I don't call it that because it's kind of a misnomer. It has nothing to do with the Constitution, except for that the ability to own a gun is in the Constitution.
right.
But constitutional carry, or what I call freedom carry, because you're free to carry without a permit if you choose. So you don't have to have a concealed carry permit in order to carry in the state of Iowa if this were to pass. And if you're a lawful and legal person that is eligible to have a gun, you can carry a gun
Right.
if you choose. So I've been right away, somebody emailed me and said, well, you're going to allow 12-year-olds to carry guns to school. Well, that's not exactly what this means at all.
Yeah.
What it means is, for example, in the state of Iowa, you have to be 21 in order to possess or own a handgun.
Right.
So you'd have to be 21 years old if you were to carry a handgun as a concealed carry. You couldn't carry a rifle out wherever you go. It'd have to be a concealed carry.
Right.
And so you'd have to be 21 years of age to do that. You can't have been a felon. There's other criteria.
Sure.
You can't do it while you're out at the Barefoot Bar.
Exactly. Right.
Drinking and partying. So those rules and regulations still exist. But what it does is allows people the freedom to do what the Constitution already guarantees.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it feels good knowing that as we get into March here, you're going to continue to meet in person as opposed to a year ago and in the legislature.
I really appreciate forums and getting together, meeting people in person. I finally had my first person down to the Capitol this week, and so that was so exciting because I'm like, let's get going. You need to get a picture with me, and I'm so glad you came. I've had 2 forums that have been in person. We did a forum at Tweeter's restaurant, and we're probably going to have one again in March.
Okay.
Probably next week or the week after. I have to get with Kay about that, but had an in-person one in Rock Rapids, and they were both just great, and it was fun to get back together with people and talk to people. Now we will have a forum in Spencer this weekend. They're going to allow a limited number of people in,
Right.
but it's going to be virtual as well. So looking forward to that. I like to hear what people have to say and what they're talking about.
Well, people enjoy having the opportunity and the right to talk to their representatives down in Des Moines or Washington, whatever it may be, and it's nice we're getting to the point where we can have this done.
It was really good news this week. The governor, I had a meeting with her on Thursday, and she said that Johnson & Johnson, she just released this yesterday, that Johnson & Johnson is going to give us 26,000 doses, and that's going to go towards manufacturers, and so we're going to get like our meatpacking plants, and it's just one dose, one shot.
Yeah.
And so that's news, that's good news. But by mid-March, she thinks we're going to have the ability to open up vaccinations to every person in the state of Iowa.
Been a long road.
It's been a year.
Yeah.
You know, so something President Trump said he was going to do was get us a vaccine within a year, and bam, we did. And vaccination started in early January or maybe even late December.
Yeah.
A record time, and now within a year, we're going to get everybody in the state of Iowa the ability to start getting vaccinated, and that's amazing. That's just an amazing turnaround.
There's a bright light in the horizon again, and it feels awful good.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, John, I thank you for coming in and talking about what's going on in the legislature and your time that you spend with your constituents and, of course, the eggs and issues this weekend. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really nice to talk about a whole different variety of issues, and it was fun today, so thank you.
My pleasure indeed. State Representative John Wills here with us today, and we want to thank him for being here with us in our studios. We thank you for watching us right here on Okoboji Broadcast. Okoboji Broadcast from the studios at historic Arnold's Park Amusement Park is brought to you by the Scott Troutman State Farm Agency in Spirit Lake, Pure Fishing in Spirit Lake. Last Touch Painting and Cleaning, providing interior, exterior, house painting, and professional cleaning services in Spirit Lake. Quest Wealth Management, a financial advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services. Advisor Jan Spielman, AJ Spielman, and Erica Wachholz. Ducky's Marine and Motorsports Repair in Spirit Lake. Bank Midwest, dream big, plan wisely, live well. Lakes Regional Healthcare and Avera Partner. Attorney Bethany Brands at Brands Law Office in Spirit Lake. Ruthven Locker at the lake, where carnivores are welcome on Hill Avenue in Spirit Lake. Beck Engineering in Spirit Lake. Be Radiant Laser Skin Studio in the Okoboji Plaza in Okoboji. The YMCA of the Okobojis is the Bedell Family YMCA, building strong families and strong communities.